Under a gray, unforgiving sky, the woman's cheeks struck the wet dirt with a dull, humiliating thud. The sting of cold mud spread across her face, clinging to her skin as booted feet circled around her. The sergeant's shadow loomed like a wall, unyielding and predatory, his hand tightening on her shoulder, as if to pin her existence to the earth itself. Laughter rippled from a few of the men, low and nervous, the kind of laughter that came not from humor but from fear of the man in charge. Her fingers dug into the ground, feeling the grit under her nails, the earth damp from the morning rain. She said nothing, she didn't plead. She didn't even blink when the sergeant's voice cut through the air, sharp and cruel, telling her she was weak, that she should have never been there in the first place. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. A collective silence, heavy and complicit. She stood slowly, her frame slim but coiled with a quiet power that only those who had seen combat could recognize. The mud streaked across her cheek made her look like something primal, someone forged in a place harsher than any training ground. The sergeant's hand shot out again, this time gripping her wrist. That was when it happened, so fast the bystanders almost missed it. A twist of her body, a movement so fluid it felt like water finding its way through stone. In less than a second, the sergeant was on his knees, gasping, clutching his arm, his face pale with shock. No one moved, not the recruits, not the officers, not the handful of civilians watching from a distance. They just stared at the woman standing there, her chest rising and falling in perfect control, not with anger but with a terrible stillness that felt more powerful than rage. She didn't speak, but the silence that followed was louder than any shouting could have been. She had been a soldier once, more than a soldier. In another life, before the politics, before the accusations that ended her career, she had been the one others turned to when missions went bad. She had crawled through deserts under fire, dragging a wounded friend whose breath rattled like broken glass. She had fought with a fever burning through her blood, with sand grinding into her skin, with the weight of comrades' lives pressing on her spine. And when the last mission ended, when the blast tore through their convoy and scattered the world into fire, she had been the one left standing, alone. They gave her a medal, a folded flag, and polite handshakes before sending her back to a world that had no place for her. She carried her losses like a second skin, quiet and unspoken. But there had been no place until she came here. Until she tried to serve again, not with a weapon this time, but with her knowledge, her endurance, her refusal to break. The sergeant didn't see that when he grabbed her arm. He saw a target, someone small enough, quiet enough to crush without consequence. The others around him saw it too, but they said nothing, their silence a shield for their own fear. He rose to his feet, eyes flashing, jaw tight with fury and humiliation. The circle around them seemed to shrink, the air heavy with the expectation of retaliation, but she just stood there, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. No apology, no explanation, just the steady presence of someone who had already lived through worse storms than this man could summon. The sergeant's lips curled, ready to strike again, but then something shifted. From the edge of the field, a figure appeared, older, his uniform crisp, his chest heavy with ribbons that told stories of battles fought long before these recruits were even born. His presence drew silence like a magnet. He didn't speak at first. He simply looked from the woman to the sergeant, then back again. Recognition flickered across his face. Recognition of her name, her service, her record. He knew, and that knowing changed everything. The sergeant's jaw clenched, but whatever words he was about to say died there. The older man stepped closer, his eyes sharp but not unkind. He didn't praise her, he didn't reprimand her. Instead, he simply nodded once, almost imperceptibly, the kind of nod that carried weight, that meant, "I see you." Around them, the recruits shifted, uneasy. Some straightened their spines, as though suddenly remembering where they were and who they wanted to be. The sergeant stepped back, his fury swallowed by something colder. The realization that this woman, the one he had thrown into the dirt, was someone his own superiors respected. And then she spoke, her voice quiet but carrying farther than anyone expected. She said that strength was not proven by humiliating the already tested, that those who had seen true war had no need to create new battles here. Her words were measured, but they cut through the tension like steel through cloth. The field fell silent again, but it was a different silence this time. Not complicit, reverent. Even the sergeant didn't speak. He just looked at her for a long moment before stepping aside. One of the younger recruits took an uncertain step forward, then another. He lifted his hand in a salute, awkward but earnest. Then another followed, and another, until the entire line of recruits stood at attention, silent, saluting her. She didn't cry, she didn't smile. She simply nodded back once, acknowledging them not as children, but as future soldiers, as people who had just witnessed what real strength looked like. When she turned to walk away, the mud still streaked her face, but it no longer looked like humiliation, it looked like war paint. In the days that followed, the story spread, whispered first among the recruits, then across the base, until even those who had not been there spoke of it with a kind of reverence. Some said the sergeant was reassigned, others said he had changed after that day, less quick to humiliate, more careful with his power. But those who had been there would never forget the sight of her standing in the dirt, silent and unshakable, and the way the entire field had shifted around her. True strength, they would say later, is not loud. It does not demand to be seen. It is the force that rises quietly when injustice pushes too far, the kind that cannot be broken, only revealed. And to anyone listening now, to anyone who has ever felt thrown into the dirt, unseen and underestimated, let this be a reminder. The world may try to bury you, but there is a moment when you will stand, when you will rise, and when the silence around you will finally turn to respect. Where are you watching from tonight? Tell this story to someone who needs it. And if you believe the world needs to hear about those who rise in silence, share this and stay with us, because there are more stories like hers waiting to be told.